Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Desktop Central free training. I would like to thank you all for taking your time out and joining us for the training despite your busy schedule. I'm Pavitra and I'll be your trainer for today's session. As you all know, Desktop Central offers a 5-week training series and currently we are in last week for configurations. This training series of Desktop Central aims at making you all understand the various vertices of Desktop Central. Before we begin the presentation, I'd like to ask you all to just grab a notepad and a cup of coffee because it is not just about configuration but also about few hidden tricks that come handy for any IT administrator. Let's take a sneak peek into today's agenda. To begin with, I'll be explaining about the overview and architecture of Desktop Central, and let's see how Desktop Central's configuration plays a vital role in the real world. I would be explaining few real-time scenarios. We'll quickly wrap it up with frequently asked questions. What is Desktop Central? Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution that helps in heterogeneous device management. What exactly do I mean when I say heterogeneous device management? You can manage your desktop, your laptop, your servers, your mobile devices, tablets, and point-of-sale devices, all of it from a single console in a connected and cohesive manner. That is what Desktop Central is all about. Let me explain the workspace changeover from legacy management to modern management. The recent past has witnessed the exponential growth of modern management, and Desktop Central strikes a balance between legacy and modern management. Legacy management fundamentally takes a device-centric approach, whereas modern management, on the other hand, takes a user-centric approach. Let me tell you how Desktop Central achieves both legacy and modern management. We are happy to announce the release of UEM Edition, which will help you in performing desktop management activities where you can automate OS imaging and deployment. You can perform mobile device management activities, and to top all of it, you can enable modern management capabilities for Windows 10 machines. The best part about UEM Edition is you can perform all of this for a single endpoint with the help of just a single license, which implies you don't need a separate license for OS imaging and deployment or mobile device management. Desktop Central supports all three major flavors of operating system, namely Windows, Mac, and Linux. These are the various versions of operating system that we support. For today's training, let's assume this to be my company's infrastructure. So I am the IT administrator for my head office, and I have two remote offices, one at New York and the other one at San Francisco. Apart from my local area network and my wide area network, I also have a bunch of roaming users who are always on the go. So my requirement would be to manage all the three networks. Let us see how Desktop Central will help me in achieving this. Desktop Central architecture. Desktop Central fundamentally works as a client-server architecture and is an agent-based model. The first step would be installation of Desktop Central server and agent. Considering this to be my local area network, I will install my Desktop Central server and I will go ahead and install my Desktop Central agent in the client computers that I wish to manage. I'll quickly take you to the product and tell you how easily you can install agent using Desktop Central. There are three major agent installation methods. So click on Admin tab and click on Domain. The first step would be to add either your domain or your workgroup. Please remember, Desktop Central supports Active Directory-based setup as well as a workgroup-based setup. So if I have to add my domain, you will have to choose the network type as Active Directory. These are the details that is required to be furnished if you want to add a domain, namely the domain name, the domain username and password, the AD domain name, and the domain controller name. In case you are a first-time user, nothing to worry. You can always contact your network administrator, or you can connect a computer to your domain and execute set space u from the command prompt for fetching the details. Let me show you how this is done. Navigate to command prompt and execute set space u from the command prompt. So once you add the domain will be listed here. This is a list. This displays a list of domains that I have managed. In case I want to add a workgroup-based setup, I will need to provide the admin username and the password. One thing that you need to bear in mind is the credentials that you give here should have admin privileges for you to install Desktop Central Agent in the client computers. One more important point. From the machine where you've installed Desktop Central Server, you should be able to access admin folder from the client computers. If at all you face any problems while agent deployment, the first thing we have to look out for is the access that you have for admin folder from the machine where you've installed Desktop Central Server to the client computer. So I am done with my first step of adding either a domain or a workgroup. Now the next step would be installation of agent. From the admin tab, click on Scope of Management. The summary page of Scope of Management sheds light on the total number of computers I manage in my network and also the number of computers in which Desktop Central has been installed successfully. Click on Computers. This will display the list of all managed computers in my network. So the first method of agent deployment is the manual method. Manually choose the computers in which you wish to deploy the agent and click on Install Agent. So automatically the agent will be installed to all the computers when you choose them manually. The semi-automatic method of agent installation would be by downloading the agent component from the web console. As you can see from the right-hand corner of Download Agent, from the right-hand corner of the web console, click on Download Agent and put it up on a shared path. Now, give access for this shared path across all the client computers, which will invoke installation of agents. In case yours is an Active Directory-based setup, you can always leverage group policy for agent installation. So these are the three major agent installation methods. Now I'm done setting up my local area network. Let's just move to my remote offices. I have one in New York and the other one in San Francisco. Let's say my San Francisco office has 900 computers and my New York office has 9,000 computers. There's one task that I want these agents to perform, which is downloading software binary. So the size of software binary is 10 MB. All the 900 computers from San Francisco remote office will contact the Desktop Central server for downloading the software binary, which means the bandwidth utilized would be 900 into 10 MB. This is the case for a network which has 900 computers. So for my New York remote office, the bandwidth utilized would be 9,000 into 10 MB. This will definitely lead to bandwidth bottleneck issues. That is when distribution server comes to rescue. Let me tell you how Desktop Central helps in bandwidth optimization of your network. Now this is my wide area network and I have a distribution server installed in one of the remote offices. When there is a task such as patch or software binary download, the distribution server will replicate the data from desktop central server, and as the name indicates, it will distribute it to all the remote office client computers, which means the bandwidth utilized would be 1 into 10 MB. Compare the ratio of 900 into 10 MB and 1 into 10 MB. This is how distribution server helps you in optimizing your bandwidth. Let me take you to the product and show how you can add remote offices and install your distribution server. Click on remote offices and click on add computer. So now I want to set my San Francisco office. So let me just give the details. And provide the details such as server IP address and the HTTP port. Ideally, you need to have a distribution server when you have more than 1,000 computers to manage. Now, my San Francisco office has 900 computers and I do not wish to have a distribution server in place. So the communication type I choose will be direct communication. Replication policy. Replication policy is a concept that all of you need to be aware of when it comes to adding remote office. Irrespective of the communication type being through a distribution server or direct communication, replication policy determines the data transfer rate between your client computers and your desktop central server. Let me show you how a replication policy is created. Click on Create Policy and provide a policy name and determine the data transfer rate based on the bandwidth available in your network. So if you have lesser bandwidth availability, you can choose to have a lesser data rate. Similarly, if you have more bandwidth availability, you can choose to have a higher data transfer rate. Not just this, you can also choose to have the replication interval and determine the frequency at which it happens. If you want it to happen during the weekends, you can choose the weekends, or if it's weekdays, you can choose for the weekdays. So this is how you create a remote office. I've created a replication policy now, and you can choose the replication policy from this drop down. I'm pretty sure that all of you would have attended the previous training session for remote control and must be familiar with the remote control settings such as compression and color quality. Scrolling down to agent installation, since I do not have a distribution server in place, the only option I have is installing WAN agents automatically. So this is another method of agent deployment which is automatically triggered from the web console. Go ahead and add this remote office. Now I've added and set my San Francisco remote office. The next requirement would be to add my New York office. So for me to do that, let me take you to the product and show you how it can be done. Just provide the name as New York Remote Office and choose the communication type as through distribution server. When it comes to distribution server, these are the set of details that I need to furnish, which is the domain net BIOS name, the computer name, the IP address, the SUDN or the DNS name, and you can have an appropriate replication policy when it comes to distribution server. So as you can see, you have an additional option which asks you for installing distribution server automatically. Just enable this checkbox and the distribution server along with your WAN agents will be installed automatically in all the client computers. Moving on to the next component, the notification server. Imagine there's an on-demand task that needs to be performed and the agent is unavailable to pick the task. When that is the case, notification server pings the agent and asks the agent to pick the task. This way, you can ensure that all important tasks will be attended by the agent.
So I finally set my local network, local area network, and my wide area network. The next set of people would be the problematic people who are my roaming users. So managing roaming users is a Herculean task for every organization because these are the set of people who contact my desktop central server directly and exposed to internet, which means my desktop central server will be exposed to vulnerabilities and will stay unsecure. When this is the case, I can have a secure gateway server in between the roaming users and the desktop central server, which means any communication from the roaming user has to be routed through the secure gateway server in order to reach the desktop central server. This way, I can be sure that my desktop central server is protected and secured. In case your network has all roaming users, the best way to go about it would be by having your desktop central instance on AWS Marketplace or Azure. Very soon, we'll be coming up with Desktop Central Cloud and Zoho Cloud, which will enable our customers to host their Desktop Central server on our very own cloud platform. The ports used by Desktop Central. Desktop Central Server uses port 8020 HTTP and HTTPS port 8383. In case of notification server, it uses port TCP 8027. Now, these are the remaining ports used by the respective applications. For more details on ports used by Desktop Central, kindly visit the link given below. The 90-minute refresh policy. Let's just say my head office has 90 computers, my San Francisco office has 900 computers, and my New York office has 9,000 computers. 90-minute refresh policy now talks about how and when the agent server communication takes place. The main purpose of having such a policy in place is to ensure that every agent communicates with the server at least once in 90 minutes. That being the first reason, it also helps in spreading the bandwidth of your network uniformly across all client computers. Because if all the computers contact the server simultaneously, it will lead to network choke and will definitely cause bandwidth bottleneck issues. The third reason would be it reduces the load on desktop central server to a greater extent. So when it is the case of 90 computers, one computer will contact the desktop central server on a minute basis. When it is the case of 900 computers, 10 computers will contact the desktop central on a minute basis. When it is 9,000 computers, 100 computers will contact the desktop central server. So this way, 90-minute refresh policy helps in bandwidth optimization. Let's proceed with the topic for today's presentation, configurations. There was a reason why I thanked you all in the beginning of the presentation because it is not all that easy being an IT administrator and juggling between various administrative tasks that you have got on a daily basis. Desktop Central's configuration aims at automating most of your everyday administrative tasks, which will reduce the time consumed for every task and also to a greater extent, it will reduce the labor invested by an IT administrator. Of late, we've been hearing a lot of incidences pertaining to data breaches and vulnerabilities. So every time something of this sort pops up, it is not easy as an IT administrator to jump from computers to computers trying to remediate the solution. Ideally, all of it should be done from a centralized location. Let's see how Desktop Central's configuration will help you in achieving this. Configuring printer to a new user. This is one of the most dreaded complaints that any IT administrator gets to use. Your organization might hire people on a monthly basis, and every new user might need access to printer. Let's just see how you can automate this task and configure IP printer to the new user. Let me take you to the product and show you how it's done. Click on Configurations and choose Windows Configuration. Desktop Central offers two different types of configuration, namely the user and the computer configuration. I'll tell you the difference between these two. If it's a user configuration, this configuration will be deployed to a particular user. So the next day, if the user logs into another mission, the configuration will still hold good for the user because it is a user configuration. If it is a computer configuration, the configuration will be deployed to the end user's mission, which means the configuration will hold good only for that particular computer. Now my requirement is to configure IP printer to a new user. So let me go ahead with user configuration. Click on user configuration and provide the name for the configuration, which is printer to new user. I'll have to add the IP printer. So provide the DNS name, the printer display name, the protocol. Choose between RAW and LPR for the protocol and the port details. In case you already have an existing printer, you can choose to either overwrite or set this as your default printer. The next concept would be printer drivers. Now, drivers are a set of software installables that is bundled with your printer. More or less, it is like dependent files for configuring your printer. If you are going to add a new driver package, you will have to upload the package. Else, if you already have a pre-installed driver, you will just have to provide the driver name. Else, you can also use a shared network printer where you just put it up on a shared network and share the path across. For security reasons, it is always better to have credentials for accessing the shared network printer just to ensure that people who have these credentials will have access to the printer. This way, I have configured my IP printer and the next step would be to define targets. So my domain is Zoho Corp. As a second level filtration, I filter users based on user because I deploy IP printer configuration to a new user. Let's say Mark is my new user. So I just choose Mark as the target and I deploy the configuration. Now the configuration will be deployed to Mark and Mark will be able to access the flow printer. This is how you configure IP printer for an for a new user. The next requirement would be configuring printer for a specific group of computers. We just took a look at the user configuration. Now let's take a look at computer configuration. Under Windows configuration, choose to configure a computer IP printer configuration. Provide the DNS name, the display name, the protocol, and all the driver details. Now, my target is not a single user, but a group of computers. So, how do I define the target? Do I go about choosing every user manually? That's not ideal. Instead, I have to group all of these users and create a group. So, creation of group will be our next step. I'll tell you how that can be done easily. From admin tab, click on custom groups and click on create new group. We have three different types of custom groups, namely the static unique, and dynamic. For static custom group, you need to manually add the computers that should be a part of that custom group. For static unique custom group, a computer which is part of group 1 cannot be a part of any other group simultaneously. Dynamic custom groups are the best. I'll tell you why. Because for creation of dynamic custom group, all you have to do is define a criteria and any computer that meets this criteria will be added to the dynamic custom group automatically. Now, I need to create a custom group for my managers, and all the managers in my organization use a computer that has Windows 10 operating system. This makes my job of grouping these people easily. The criteria I choose operating system and my managers use Windows 10 operating system. This way, I've created a custom group. Now let's just go back to the computer configuration of IP printer. I define the target with Zohocop as my domain and I filter computers based on custom group. I have created a custom group for my manager. Now I choose the custom group for managers and I deploy the configuration. This means IP printer is now configured only to a specific group of computers who are my managers. The next requirement would be baseline configurations as collection. Like I said, let's assume your organization hires people on a monthly basis. Every new user might not need just IP printer but will also require access to Wi-Fi also. Depending on the organization, you will need your end users to perform a set of operations for the initial setup. Now, this set of operations will require few dependent files. So, will you have to approach the end user, give them the dependent files manually and ask them to perform, or will you automate all of it from a centralized location? So, that is what collection is all about because you group all the necessary configurations for a particular new user or any target for that matter and deploy a collection in one shot. From the product console, under configuration, click on collection. Now my requirement is to deploy the collection to new users. So I will go in for a user collection. I'd name the user collection as new users. Once I'm done with it, these are the list of configuration which holds good for any user. The user might need access to browsers and I need to define few display related settings in the end user's computers. So drive mapping could be the configuration where I attach the dependent files and he will also need access to Wi-Fi. So these are the four configurations which will be a part of the collection that will be deployed to the new user. The next step would be configuring each of these configurations one by one. This is the browser configuration. I want the default homepage to be set to Google for security reasons. I can also choose to I can also choose the default search engine. Once I've configured this, I move on to the next configuration which is display. I do not want any wallpaper in my end user's computer. So the action would be to disable wallpaper. Should I permit the user to modify the wallpaper? It is a no. This was for display configuration. The next one would be mapping network drives. So just give a drive name and the resource to be mapped. You can browse from the window here. The resource that I want to be mapped will be DCT. So I add this folder and I map the resource to the drive, which means D drive containing the folder DC team will be added to the end user's computer. So the end user can access this drive and the files of this folder and perform the steps for initial installation. Just give a driver name and you are good to go. The last configuration would be configuring Wi-Fi settings. Create a profile and give a profile name and the password. You can also enable the checkbox to start this connection automatically. Once you're done with this, the user will be able to access your Wi-Fi. I'm done configuring all of these four configurations that form a part of a collection. The next step would be to define the target. So under Zohocop domain, my targets would be new users. So I'll again go ahead and filter users based on custom group. This time I need a custom group for new users. I cannot determine the user who will join an organization, but I can always determine and take a call for the criteria based on which a user will be added to the network. Now that criteria will be helpful in creating a dynamic custom group. So once you create a dynamic custom group, just like I showed you few minutes back, you can add that as your target and deploy the configuration, which is nothing but collection of configurations is deployed as a collection. This way you can baseline configurations and deploy it as a collection. The next scenario would be to turbocharge your Windows 10 experience using few registry hacks. So like I said, it is not just about configurations, but also few hidden tricks that come in handy for every IT administrator. Windows 10 has lot of little nuances that Microsoft wrongly assumes that every user might love it. But Windows registry always has tweaks for everything. These are the few cases where you might want to optimize your Windows 10 user experience to another level. Add your own apps to the menu. Your end users might use a set of applications over and over again. It is not ideal for your end users to navigate through folders and then access the application. Instead, what you can do is you can just create their own apps to the menu bar. This will be the first case. The second case would be to automatically delete pagefile.sys at shutdown. What is pagefile.sys? So pagefile.sys is a virtual RAM used by Windows machines. It is similar to the actual RAM, but what is stored in this RAM is the program which is unused. Windows intends at doing this just to reduce the burden on your actual RAM. But if you take a granular look at it, the space occupied by your virtual RAM is almost the same as the space occupied by your actual RAM. Where is this reflected? When you shut down, it takes longer than usual for the shutdown to be done, which means when you delete pagefile.sys at shutdown, you save up on a lot of space because the actual RAM size might be huge, which also means the virtual RAM size will also be more in size. So it is ideal to delete pagefile.sys at shutdown. The third case would be to disable Windows startup delay. Windows has introduced a tiny delay during every startup just to ensure that after you log in, you have a set of startup apps that works smoothly. But you might or might not have startup apps that need this delay for startup. In that case, disabling Windows startup delay is ideal. All of this can be performed just by adding a registry key with the help of registry configuration. Please remember that all this takes manipulation at registry level. Let me tell you how you can achieve this using registry configuration. Click on configurations and under Windows configuration, choose for a registry configuration. You can either manually add the registry keys or you can import the registry keys using two options. One will be HTTP, the other one would be network share. So now I will be adding the registry keys manually. There are four actions offered by Desktop Central, which is either to write or delete a value or add or delete a key. Now I will be writing a value to the registry. I will give the appropriate header key and the subkey for the three cases that I just discussed and choose the value name. Once you're done with this, choose your define your targets and deploy the configuration, which means once the registry configuration is deployed, the keys that you provide here will be returned to the registry and uh, consequentially it will be impacted for that particular case. The next requirement would be for configuring templates to secure desktops. Desktop Central offers more than 50 plus predefined configuration templates. So you have two template types here. One is predefined, Other one is user defined. I shall tell you how user defined templates can be created. Just navigate to any Windows configuration and configure all of these settings and define your target. Before you deploy, you have an option which says save as template. Now, when you save as template, this configuration with all your customized settings will be added as a user defined template. So, click on template and click on user defined template. So, these are the templates defined by end users. Let's just take a look at the predefined user template, predefined configuration templates. So for securing desktops, let me take a look at auto locking PCs. Whether or not your end user locks his or her system, it is always the responsibility of an IT administrator to have an eye for auto locking of personal computers for the obvious security reasons. So under auto locking personal computer templates, the value I've added is 60 seconds, which means in 60 seconds of inactivity, the personal computer will be locked automatically. So this is the template that I already have in place. I'll show you how easy it is to create a configuration with a predefined template. Click on create configuration and you don't need to configure any of this setting. You just have to go ahead, define your target and deploy the computer. So this is how you can use templates for securing desktops. The next would be USB device management. USB devices are all over the place and it's quite inevitable for every organization. But still, it is the IT administrator's call for securing your endpoints in spite of your end users using USB devices. Let us see how that can be done. From Windows configuration, choose a user secure USB configuration. So this would be secure USB for my users. These are the device types that can either be added or removed. So disk drive, portable devices or Apple USB devices, all of it portable devices is nothing but blocking your mobile devices or your cameras and all the other devices. So I can either choose to unblock or block these devices. When I block these devices, you have the option of excluding devices, which means USB device or the disk drive or the portable devices will be blocked for the defined targets with some exemption. The devices that I exclude here will alone be exempted for the defined targets. On what basis can you exclude devices? You can exclude devices based on the device instance ID. In case you are not aware of the device instance ID, kindly navigate to Device Manager for fetching the details about the USB's device instance ID. If not, you can choose to exclude all the instances from a particular vendor, provided you trust the vendor. If not, you can just choose to exclude all the encrypted devices under a preconceived notion that encrypted devices will stay secure. Once I'm done excluding devices, define the target and deploy the configuration. This way, I have blocked the USB for the defined targets with some exemptions. The next one would be to allow only my managers to use USB devices. So managers are the ones who will always need to access USB devices. When that is the case, from defined targets, I exclude the target using custom groups. Now managers and salespeople are someone who need to use USB devices for work purposes. So when I exclude the target of custom groups with my sales members, USB will be blocked for the entire organization with the exemption of my managers and my sales team. How do I ensure that all my managers use only encrypted devices? Like I said, you can exclude devices based on few criteria. One such criteria will be all encrypted devices. So when I choose all encrypted devices, it means though USB devices are blocked, Anyone who uses encrypted devices will be unblocked. That person can use a USB device. So all the managers in my organization use encrypted devices. This is how you can fight the inevitable vulnerability, which is USB device management. Let's move on to the scenarios and solution and see how desktop central configuration plays a vital role. How can I protect my endpoints against browser-based vulnerabilities? This is a great question because of late, browser-based vulnerabilities have been on the rise. Most of them tend to overlook browsers as endpoints. We just think about securing our desktops, our laptops, or our mobile phones. But the obvious reason is browsers are the easiest point of entry for hackers, and it is very easy to inject viruses to all your network computers via browsers. Having said that, browser is the only interface which is mostly used by your end users compared to the other endpoints. Considering browser as an endpoint, it is very important to keep your browsers intact and secure. You don't have to invest so much labor for securing your browsers. All you need to do is configure 5 straightforward settings of browser configuration and you can be sure of all your browsers being secured. Let's just see how you can fight browser-based vulnerabilities using Desktop Central's browser configuration. From Windows configuration, choose to deploy a browser configuration. Desktop Central supports Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox, and Microsoft Edge browser. So the general setting would be to choose a home page and the default search engine. This way, I can ensure that no other web pages or no other websites which could be malicious will be used by my users. The next one would be to configure proxy. You can either configure proxy manually or automatically. Moving forward to the restriction settings, Microsoft Edge specific setting enlightens developer tools or local WebRTC or cookies. Now, cookies and plugins are browser components that can be vulnerable and might prove to be fatal to your organization. It is always ideal to block cookies or exclude cookies that can be trusted. Developer tools and local WebRTC or access abort flags are few settings which is very peculiar to Edge, Microsoft Edge browser, and you as an IT administrator know how crucial it can turn out to be when your end users access these settings and make changes to these settings. It is always better to disable these settings for your end users. Moving forward to the security aspect, add the list of trusted sites and the restricted sites. A user might be able to use a restricted site only if it has a valid security certificate in place. The Edge specific settings will shed light on the Windows Defender, which means anytime a user uses something which is alarming, the IT administrator will be notified automatically because all the files and folders are scrutinized thoroughly. Under advanced settings, you have options to clear cache and password cache. All of us know how vulnerable it is to have a password cache in place. So enterprise mode siteless path is something that you need to be aware of. Enterprise mode siteless path is a path which contains all the list of legacy sites. Let's say you have a legacy site that can be rendered only using Internet Explorer, but the browser you use is Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft Edge will face compatibility issues when it needs to render a legacy site. How do you tackle this situation? Once you've provided a legacy site in this path, every time the browser encounters a legacy site, it will be rendered using Internet Explorer automatically instead of Microsoft Edge, which means the browser will be routed from Internet Explorer to Microsoft Edge. Like I said few minutes back, Desktop Central always manages to strike a balance between legacy management and modern management. So this is how you fight browser-based vulnerabilities. We completely rely on Desktop Central for system management and we cannot afford downtime. What should we do? When this is the case, you can use a failover server, which is an optional component. Failover server is a standby server that works in close proximity with Desktop Central server. So when Desktop Central fails, which means when the primary server fails, the secondary server will always be in a position to take over the responsibilities of primary server. When a failover server is in place, it is always advisable to use a database configured in a remote computer. Desktop Central supports MS SQL database. We have thousands of configurations in Desktop Central and it has become unmanageable. Is there a way out? This question makes a lot of sense because for large organizations, you are bound to create at least 20 to 30 configurations per week. When you keep doing this, you lose the track of configuration that you've already created and end up creating the same configuration over and over again. So you need to have a cleanup process in place. Let me show you how you can clean up your configurations. So under configuration, you have configuration settings. Configuration cleanup settings provides two options. The first one will be to automatically move configurations to trash if they're unused for stipulated number of days. The next option would be to permanently delete configurations which are in trash for a specified number of days. This way you can always this way I'm sorry. This way, you can just enable these checkboxes and be sure that your old configurations are cleaned up and you make space for the new configurations. Some of our computers go unmanaged quite often. Is there a way to fix this? Computers will go unmanaged only under two scenarios. The first one, when your end user has stopped Desktop Central server service. And the second instance would be when your end user has uninstalled Desktop Central Agent from the client computer. If you want all the computers to be managed at all times, you can definitely drill down deeper and configure two settings that will restrict your users from doing something of this sort. Under Admin tab, click on Agent Settings. You have two options for restricting users from uninstalling the agent and restricting users from stopping the Desktop Central agent service. Once you enable this, your agents will be unable to stop the service knowingly or unknowingly and will be unable to uninstall Desktop Central agent. This way, no computer will go unmanaged from your network. It is painful to deploy all the configurations each time we hire an employee or add a computer to our network. Is there a way out? I totally agree with it because it is definitely painful to keep redeploying the configuration over and over again. Don't worry, Desktop Central helps you to achieve this seamlessly. From Configuration tabs, click on Configuration Settings. So when every computer or user is added to the OU or group, the configuration needs to be applied during two options. You can choose between these two options. The first one would be system startup or user logon. If it is a computer configuration, the configuration will be deployed during subsequent system startup. If it is a user configuration, the configuration will be deployed during subsequent user logon. If not, you can choose to deploy this during the refresh cycle after choose the number of hours as per your necessity. This way, you can be sure that all the configurations will be deployed to any new user or computer. There's one other way Desktop Central helps you in achieving this. Let me tell you how. From Admin tab, under Scope of Management, click on SOM Policy. SOM Policy lets your Active Directory and your Desktop Central server stay in sync at all times. What does this mean? Whenever a new computer is added to your Active Directory or a computer is removed from your Active Directory, how do you think Desktop Central will be notified of the same? For this, it is important to have your Active Directory and Desktop Central server in sync. You can detect and add new computers. What is the advantage of being notified of a new computer? The advantage is the agents can be installed automatically if you wish to, which means you have two options. Either you can be notified whenever a new computer is added, or you can go ahead and install the agent every time a new computer is added. Similarly, you can delete inactive computers. It is ideal to schedule the Active Directory sync at least once a week. You don't have to worry about the sync data which is posted to the Desktop Central server, because again, we have two options, which is sync only modified and sync all. Sync all will post the entire data of the Active Directory sync. Sync only modified will post just the differential data since the previous sync. I want Desktop Central to use the available system resources effectively for improved performance. What should I do? In case you have limited system resources and you want to optimize your system performance using Desktop Central, this is how you do it. Under Admin tab, you have Database Settings. Click on Database Optimization and take a call on the memory that can be consumed by Desktop Central server in case you have limited system resources. So this way, you optimize your database. These business data breaches and cyber attacks are fearsome. Can Desktop Central configurations be of some help? Definitely yes. I'm sure most of you might be using image rasterization software or editing software such as Adobe. Most of you must be aware of the GoScript vulnerability that just grabbed headlines a few months back. GoScript vulnerability had an inbuilt command which turned out to be vulnerable. Now, there's no way you can go ahead and stop this vulnerability because GoScript is a component which is very crucial to the functionality of these softwares. Let me tell you how Desktop Central worked on a workabout to fight GoScript vulnerability. Even before organization could come up with patches for GoScript vulnerability, we came up with a custom script that could be deployed to all the computers. From configuration, click on script repository. Now, script repository stores all the custom script that can be deployed as a configuration. So here you go with a GoScript vulnerability for Windows script. Using this script, create a user configuration or a computer configuration and deploy it to the target computers. This will help in the detection and deletion of GoScript. We offer two options. Either you can be notified of just the detection of GoScript, or you can detect and delete the GoScript. I need to keep track on asset data even when I'm away from my desk. Is this possible? Definitely yes. We're more than happy to announce the launch of a Desktop Central mobile app for Android as well as iOS. Mobile app, Desktop Central mobile app helps you in managing all your computers on the go. That way, you don't have to stay glued to your seat at all times. From Admin tab, click on Mobile app. The first step would be downloading mobile app and the second step would be configuring the app. That's how easy it is to manage computers on the go. This is how the mobile app will look like. Does Desktop Central allow you to block USB devices for particular IP range? Yes, it does. We just spoke about a second level granular filtration, and IP range is one such filtering criteria. From configurations, choose any configuration and choose any type of configuration. Choose Zoho Corp as the domain, and under filtration, I have filter users based on IP range. So secure USB configuration can be configured with defining a target and filtering users based on the IP range. This way, the USB devices that fall under a particular IP range will be blocked. Can website security certificates be deployed to workstations and to multiple browsers? Yes, we do have a configuration which is about certificate distribution, and all you have to do is distribute certificates from a certificate store to the defined target. Some keyboards and monitors have embedded USB ports. Will those ports also be blocked despite having the keyboard and mouse options excluded from the block? Yes. The question is, I exclude keyboard and mouses, but these keyboard and mouses will have inbuilt embedded USB ports. Does it mean those USB ports will be excluded as well? No, that is not the case. Even though you exclude your keyboard and your mouse, every USB device will have a unique device instance ID. So when you provide the device instance ID, irrespective of the USB port being embedded, it will still be blocked. When does the configuration get deleted? Is it based on the status of the configuration? Deletion of configuration is not based on the status of a configuration. Like I just showed, it is based on the configuration cleanup settings that you define. How GDPR compliant is Desktop Central? GDPR compliant of was it was the limelight of the first half of 2018. I'll tell you how GDPR compliant Desktop Central is. From Admin tab, click on Privacy Settings. These are the set of concerns that we get from every administrator. You can choose to either approve or deny the consent. Click on Right to Erasure. So right to erasure means every time a technician is deleted, Desktop Central will not retain any of the personally identifiable information. Apart from this, click on Admin tab and click on Export Settings. Any report or any kind of document that is exported from Desktop Central server might contain the personally identifiable information. So you take a call and define the export settings if you want to mask or remove or retain the personal information. This is how GDPR compliant Desktop Central is. How to check the security levels of my Desktop Central server? This is a quick question because all of us want to stay secure, but it is always better to have a reality check on how secure we really are. Under Security Settings, click on Security Settings. It displays a security meter and says Desktop Central Server is 31% secure. I have a list of settings that can be either enabled, disabled, or configured. This will automatically change my security meter by increasing or decreasing as and when I enable and disable the settings. Is there a way to optimize the power consumption levels in my network computers? This is again a responsibility of the IT administrator. You will also be questioned for the power consumed by your endpoints. There is a way you can optimize this. We do have a configuration, a Windows configuration that emphasizes on power management. Create a power management scheme or modify an existing power management scheme and configure settings such as turn off the display after the stipulated time period or turn off to sleep after a particular time period. This way, you can optimize the power consumed by your endpoints. What happens to the configuration if any of the target computer is down? Whenever the target computer is back in the network and is up and running, the configuration will be deployed to the target computer. My user has deleted the created desktop central config shortcut. Should I redeploy the configuration? You do not have to, because we do understand that end users can go ahead and delete the shortcuts that you create, but you don't have to take the pain of redeploying this configuration over and over again. Instead, what you can do is define the target for any configuration, and the execution setting provides an option for applying the configuration at every logon. Before you deploy, just ensure that you enable this checkbox. That brings us to the end of the session. Rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 being the best. In case you found the training session to be informative, kindly spread a word with social media sites. Desktop Central Server's next training is scheduled on the 3rd of April for patch management. Please do join us, and we do promise to come up with a lot more new scenarios and ways of how Desktop Central can be of use to you. Configurations is just one facet of endpoint management. Desktop Central has a whole load of features to offer. In case you like a personalized demo, kindly fill the form from this website and schedule a personalized demo. We're happy to announce that EMS is on a world tour, and these are the upcoming events you have. On the 5th and 7th of March, join us at Canada. On the 12th and 14th of March, join us in US. Thank you all for joining us.